Sometimes, the smallest accident is the moment your entire life changes. The cafe hums with the soft clinking of ceramic cups and low conversations blending into a steady rhythm. Warm lights hanging low over polished wooden tables like something out of a postcard. The kind of place where people linger longer than they should and pretend they have everything figured out. But Emily Carter doesn't belong here, not really, not in her slightly wrinkled uniform or her worn-out sneakers that have seen too many double shifts. Her fingers trembling just slightly as she balances 2 large coffees on a tray, her mind racing faster than her feet because rent is 3 days overdue and her manager already warned her this morning about being late again, and she promised herself, just get through this shift, just don't mess up today. But the moment she turns the corner, it happens, the kind of moment that doesn't feel real until it's too late. Her elbow catches the edge of a chair, the tray tilts, and in one slow, irreversible motion, hot coffee spills forward, dark. Liquid splashing across a crisp white shirt and the tailored navy blazer of a man standing right in front of her. Time freezes, the noise around them fading into silence as the cup slips from her hand and shatters softly against the floor. Her breath caught somewhere between apology and panic. "Oh my God. I'm so sorry." She blurts out, words tumbling over each other as she grabs a handful of napkins, her hands shaking as she reaches toward him. But then she stops, because he isn't reacting the way people usually do. There's no anger, no sharp inhale, no irritated glare. Instead, he's just looking at her, really looking at her. His expression unreadable but not cold, his dark eyes steady, almost curious, as if the coffee soaking into his shirt doesn't matter at all, as if this moment isn't an inconvenience but something unexpected, something worth noticing, and Emily feels her face burn, embarrassment flooding through her as she pulls her hands back slightly. "I didn't see you. I swear, I'll pay for the cleaning. I can fix this." Her voice softens at the end, uncertainty creeping in because she knows she can't afford whatever that jacket costs, not even close. But the man just glances down briefly at the stain before looking back at her, and there's the faintest hint of a smile, almost like he finds the situation interesting. "It's just coffee," he says calmly, his voice low, composed, completely at odds with the chaos she feels inside. And for a second, Emily doesn't know how to respond, because people don't react like this, not here, not to her. And that's when she notices it, the subtle details she missed at first. The precision of his watch, the way his shoes catch the light, the quiet confidence in the way he stands like he owns every room he walks into without needing to prove it. And suddenly, she feels even smaller, even more out of place. "Still, I ruined your shirt," she insists, her voice quieter now, almost apologizing for existing. But he just studies her for a moment longer, like he's trying to figure something out, something beyond the obvious, something about her. And then he says almost to himself, "No, you didn't ruin anything." And Emily blinks, confused because she definitely did. But the way he says it, it sounds like he means something else entirely, like this accident wasn't a mistake at all, and for reasons she can't explain. Her heart starts beating a little faster, not from fear this time, but from something unfamiliar, something that feels like the beginning of a story she never meant to step into. Emily stands frozen for half a second longer than she should, the weight of what just happened pressing down on her chest as the world slowly fades back in. The hum of the espresso machine, the chatter of customers, the sharp voice of her manager somewhere behind the counter calling her name. But she cannot move yet because his eyes are still on her, steady and unfamiliar in a way that makes her feel seen and exposed at the same time. And that feeling is dangerous because people like him do not notice people like her. They look past them, through them like part of the furniture. But he does not, and that is what unsettles her the most. "Emily." Her manager's voice cuts through again, sharper now, and she finally snaps out of it, stepping back quickly, clutching the damp napkins in her hand. "I am really sorry. I will get someone to take care of that right away," she says, her words rushing out as she turns toward the counter, already bracing herself for the consequences. Because this is how it always goes. One mistake, one slip, and everything starts to fall apart. But before she can take more than 2 steps, his voice stops her, calm but firm. "Wait," and she turns back instinctively, her heart skipping in a way that makes no sense. He reaches into his pocket, pulling out a simple card, no flashy logo, no bold design, just a name printed cleanly across it, and he holds it out to her. "If it makes you feel better, you can send the bill here," he says, but there is something almost amused in his tone, like he knows she will not, like he is offering more than just a solution to a stained shirt. Emily hesitates for a second before taking the card, her fingers brushing his briefly, and the contact is quick, accidental, but it lingers in her mind longer than it should. "Thank you," she murmurs, glancing down at the name without really processing it, because her brain is still trying to catch up with everything else, and then he steps back slightly, giving her space, but not before his gaze flickers once more to something tucked under her arm, the corner of a worn sketchbook she had almost forgotten she was carrying. "You draw?" he asks, nodding toward it, and the question catches her off guard, because no one here ever asks her that. No one here notices anything beyond the uniform and the coffee orders. She instinctively pulls the sketchbook closer, a small protective gesture. "Sometimes," she replies quietly, her voice softer now, almost cautious, like it is something fragile she does not want examined too closely. He studies her for a moment longer, and there is that look again, that quiet curiosity, as if he just uncovered something valuable hidden in plain sight. And then, just as quickly, it is gone, replaced by a polite nod. "Do not stop," he says simply, and for a second, she forgets about the stain, the mess, the job she is barely holding on to, because no one has ever said that to her before. Not like that, not like it matters, and then he turns, adjusting his still damp sleeve like it is nothing more than a minor inconvenience, and walks toward the door, blending into the steady flow of people leaving and entering the cafe, and just like that, he is gone, leaving behind the faint scent of coffee and something else she cannot quite name. Emily stands there for a moment longer, the card still in her hand, her manager now approaching with a look that promises a lecture. But Emily barely hears it because her eyes are fixed on the name printed on that card, and something deep inside her tells her that this was not just an accident, that whatever just happened is not over, not even close. Emily does not remember the rest of her shift clearly, only fragments slipping through her mind like pieces of a conversation she cannot quite hold on to. The sharp tone of her manager reminding her to focus. The steady rhythm of taking orders, calling names, wiping tables, but everything feels slightly off, like she is moving through water, slower, heavier, distracted by something she cannot explain, and every time she reaches into her apron pocket and feels the edge of that card, her heart stutters just a little. By the time her shift finally ends, the sky outside has turned a soft gray blue, the kind of early evening that makes the city feel quieter than it really is. She steps out into the cool air, pulling her jacket tighter around herself as she exhales slowly, trying to let the day go, but she cannot, because she still has not looked at the card properly, not really, so she leans against the brick wall just outside the cafe, her fingers hesitating for a moment before pulling it out. The paper is thicker than she expected, smooth, expensive in a way that feels out of place in her hand, and when she finally looks down, her eyes scan the name again. Daniel Hayes. It sounds familiar, but she cannot place it, not yet, below it. A company name she recognizes vaguely from something she read once, something about tech, something big, but her mind is too tired to connect the dots. She shakes her head slightly, slipping the card back into her pocket as if it might mean less if she does not think about it too much, because people like him do not circle back into lives like hers. They pass through, like a moment, like a story you tell yourself later that does not quite feel real. And yet, as she pushes off the wall and starts walking down the street toward the bus stop, she cannot ignore the strange pull in her chest, like something unfinished, like a question without an answer. Her small apartment is only a 15-minute ride away, cramped and dim, with a flickering hallway light that has not been fixed in months. She drops her bag onto the chair, kicks off her shoes, and sits on the edge of her bed, exhaustion settling into her bones, but instead of resting, she reaches for her sketchbook, flipping it open to a blank page, her pencil hovering for a second before moving almost on its own, lines forming without thought, instinct guiding her hand, and before she realizes it, she is sketching him, the sharp lines of his jaw, the calm in his expression, the way his eyes held something she could not quite define. She pauses, staring down at the page, her breath catching slightly, because it feels too real, too detailed for someone she met for less than 5 minutes. That is ridiculous. She whispers to herself, closing the sketchbook quickly as if it might expose something she is not ready to admit. She sets it aside, leaning back against the wall, her gaze drifting toward the ceiling, telling herself this is nothing. Just a strange moment in a long day, but her fingers move again, almost unconsciously, reaching into her pocket, pulling out the card once more. This time she studies it more carefully, the clean font, the simplicity of it, the confidence it carries without trying too hard. Daniel Hayes. She repeats the name quietly, and this time, something clicks, a memory surfaces, an article headline, a photo she once saw while scrolling on her phone late at night. Her eyes widen slightly as realization begins to form, but she shakes her head again, dismissing it almost immediately. No way, she murmurs, because that would not make sense. Not at all. Why would someone like that be standing in her cafe, letting her spill coffee on him, and walking away like it meant nothing? And yet, the thought lingers, refusing to disappear completely, settling somewhere deep inside her like a quiet possibility. And as she finally lies back on her bed, staring up at the cracked ceiling, one question keeps circling in her mind, not about the coffee, not about the mistake, but about him and why, out of everyone in that room, he chose to notice her. The next morning does not feel like a fresh start. It feels like a continuation of something unfinished, something Emily cannot quite shake off no matter how hard she tries. She wakes up earlier than usual, the pale sunlight slipping through the thin curtains of her small apartment, casting soft lines across the floor, and for a moment she just lies there, staring at the ceiling, replaying the previous day in fragments, the spill, his voice, the way he looked at her like she was more than just another person passing through his day. She exhales slowly and sits up, running a hand through her hair as if that might clear her thoughts. But it does not, because the first thing she reaches for is not her phone, not her shoes, but the sketchbook sitting on the chair beside her bed. She opens it carefully, almost cautiously, flipping to the page she closed so quickly the night before, and there he is, staring back at her in graphite lines that feel too alive, too precise. She traces the edge of the page lightly with her finger, her mind drifting, wondering how someone she barely knows could feel so present in her thoughts. This is getting ridiculous, she mutters under her breath, closing the sketchbook again and setting it aside with a firm motion, like she is drawing a boundary she knows she will not keep. The day moves forward whether she is ready or not. She pulls on her uniform, grabs her bag, and steps out into the city that never waits for anyone. The bus ride is quiet, filled with the usual early commuters, people scrolling through their phones, sipping coffee, living lives that feel steady in ways hers does not, and for a while she manages to push him out of her mind, focusing on the routine, the rhythm, the things she can control. But the moment she steps back into the cafe, something shifts, not dramatically, not in a way anyone else would notice, but she feels it, like the air is holding its breath, like something is about to happen. She shakes it off, tying her apron, stepping behind the counter, forcing herself into the familiar motions, take the order, make the drink, call the name, smile, repeat. Minutes turn into an hour, then another, and slowly, she starts to relax, convincing herself that yesterday was just that, a strange moment that does not repeat until the bell above the door chimes softly, and something in her chest tightens before she even looks up. It is not logic, it is not reason, it is instinct, and when she finally glances toward the entrance, her breath catches just slightly, because he is there, standing just inside the doorway like he has always belonged in that space, dressed differently this time, more casual, but still carrying that same quiet presence that makes everything around him feel a little sharper, little more real. He scans the room briefly before his eyes land on her. And there it is again, that look, that moment of recognition that feels too intentional to be coincidence. Emily freezes for half a second before forcing herself to move, turning back to the counter as if she did not notice him, as if her heart is not suddenly beating faster, as if this does not matter, but it does, and she knows it. She hears his footsteps approach, steady, unhurried, and when he stops in front of her, she keeps her eyes on the register for a second longer than necessary before finally looking up, meeting his gaze again. "You came back," she says before she can stop herself, her voice softer than she intended, and there is a flicker of something in his expression, something almost like satisfaction, but gentler, more human. "I said it was just coffee," he replies, but there is a hint of a smile now, like that explanation is not the whole truth. And Emily feels that same strange pull again, stronger this time because now it is no longer just an accident, Now it is a choice, and she cannot help but wonder what exactly he came back for, and why it feels like her life is quietly shifting in ways she does not fully understand yet. Emily tries to steady her hands as she reaches for a cup, but the familiar routine feels different now, like every small movement is being watched, not in a judgmental way, but in a way that makes her more aware of herself than she has ever been. She clears her throat slightly, forcing her voice to sound normal. "What can I get for you?" she asks, even though part of her already knows he did not come back just for coffee. He leans slightly against the counter, relaxed, as if he has nowhere else to be. "Black coffee," he says simply, and there is something intentional in how ordinary the order sounds, like he is choosing simplicity on purpose. Emily nods, turning to prepare it, grateful for the brief moment to look away, to breathe, to gather her thoughts. But her mind does not cooperate. It keeps circling back to him, to the way he showed up again, to the quiet certainty in his presence. She pours the coffee carefully this time, her focus sharper, her movements precise, as if getting this right matters more than it should. When she turns back, she places the cup in front of him, her fingers lingering for just a second before she pulls back. "Here you go," she says softly, and for a moment neither of them moves, the space between them filled with something unspoken. He glances down at the cup, then back at her. "No accidents this time," he says lightly, and there is a hint of humor in his voice, enough to make her exhale a small, unexpected laugh, the tension easing just slightly. "I am trying to keep my job," she replies, the honesty slipping out before she can filter it, and his expression shifts, not dramatically, but enough for her to notice, like he is filing that detail away, like it matters. He takes a sip of the coffee, then sets the cup down, his gaze never fully leaving her. "You are good at this," he says, and the comment catches her off guard, because no one says that about serving coffee, not like it is something worth noticing. She shrugs lightly, a small defensive gesture. "It is just coffee." She echoes his words from yesterday, and this time, it is his turn to pause, as if he recognizes the reflection, as if he understands that she is not just talking about the drink. A quiet moment passes, and then he gestures slightly toward her bag resting behind the counter, the corner of her sketchbook visible again. "Did you draw last night?" he asks, and her breath catches just slightly, because the question feels too personal, too specific, like he somehow stepped into a part of her life she keeps hidden. She hesitates, then nods slowly, a little. She admits, her voice softer now, more vulnerable. He studies her for a moment, and there is something in his expression that feels different, less curious, more certain, like he already knows the answer to a question she has not asked. "Can I see it sometime?" he says, and it is not a demand, not even really a request, more like an invitation, and Emily feels that same internal conflict rise up again, the instinct to protect herself, to keep that part of her separate from everything else, but also the quiet pull telling her this might be something she should not push away. She opens her mouth to respond, but before she can, her manager calls her name sharply from across the cafe, breaking the moment, reality rushing back in all at once. Emily steps back slightly, her expression shifting as she turns to answer, but when she looks back at him again, he is still there, still watching her with that same steady attention, and for the first time, she realizes this is not just a coincidence. This is something he is choosing, and that realization changes everything, because it means whatever is happening between them is no longer accidental. And she is not sure if that makes it more exciting or more dangerous. The rest of the day stretches on in a strange, quiet tension that Emily cannot fully explain, like something just beneath the surface waiting to shift again. Daniel does not leave right away. He stays longer than any customer usually does, sitting at a small table near the window with his coffee, occasionally glancing at his phone but never fully distracted, and every time Emily passes by, she can feel it, that subtle awareness that he is still there, still paying attention, not in an intrusive way but in a way that makes her feel noticed, and that word alone feels unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable, because she has spent so long blending into the background of other people's lives, being the one who serves, who listens, who moves quietly through the edges of someone else's story. But today, it feels different. Today, she is part of something, even if she does not understand what it is yet. When her shift finally ends, she moves quickly, trying to slip out before things can become more complicated. But as she steps Outside into the fading light, she hears footsteps behind her. Steady, unhurried, and she does not need to turn around to know it is him. "You always leave that fast." His voice reaches her, calm as ever, and she pauses, exhaling slowly before turning to face him. The cool air brushing against her skin as the city moves around them. Cars passing, people talking, life continuing as if this moment is not quietly shifting something inside her. "I have another shift tomorrow," she replies, a simple answer, but it feels like a barrier, like she is reminding both of them where she stands. He nods slightly, as if he understands, but does not accept that as the end of the conversation. "Walk with me," he says, not as a command, but as a suggestion that feels difficult to refuse. Emily hesitates for just a second, her instincts pulling her in two directions, one telling her to keep things simple, to go home, to stay in the safe boundaries of her routine, the other whispering that moments like this do not come twice, that whatever this is, it is already happening whether she chooses it or not, and before she can overthink it, she nods, falling into step beside him as they begin walking down the street, side by side but not too close, the silence between them not awkward, just present, like it is waiting to be filled. "You do not seem surprised to see me again," he says after a moment, glancing at her briefly, and Emily lets out a small breath, a hint of a smile touching her lips. "I was not sure if you were real yesterday," she admits, the honesty slipping out easier now. He chuckles softly, the sound low and genuine. "And today?" he asks, and she looks ahead, considering the question. "Today I think you are real. I just do not understand why," she says quietly, and there it is, the question she has been holding back, the one that matters more than anything else. Why him, why her, why this? Daniel slows his steps slightly, his expression shifting just enough for her to notice, like he is choosing his next words carefully. "Maybe I wanted to see if yesterday was real too," he replies, and the answer is simple, but it carries something deeper beneath it, something that makes Emily's chest tighten in a way she cannot explain, because she understands that feeling, that uncertainty, that need to hold on to something rare before it disappears. They continue walking, the city lights beginning to flicker on around them, casting a warm glow over the sidewalk, and for a moment, everything feels suspended, like time has slowed just enough for them to exist in this space between strangers and something more, and Emily realizes that whatever this is, it is no longer just about a spilled cup of coffee. It is about a connection that neither of them expected, and neither of them seems ready to let go of. They walk longer than Emily expects, past storefronts beginning to close, past streetlights casting soft golden pools onto the sidewalk, and for a while, neither of them feels the need to fill the silence. It is not empty, it is steady, like something slowly building without being rushed. Emily keeps her gaze forward at first, aware of him beside her in a way that feels both grounding and unsettling, because she is not used to this, not used to someone choosing to stay, to walk with her when there is no obvious reason to, and that thought lingers until she finally glances at him, studying his profile in the dim light. The calm way he carries himself, the quiet confidence that does not demand attention but naturally holds it. "So what do you actually do?" she asks after a moment, her tone casual but her curiosity real, because tech could mean anything, and something about him tells her it means more. Daniel lets out a small breath, almost like he expected the question sooner. "I build companies," he replies simply, and the answer is vague but not dismissive. Emily raises an eyebrow slightly, a hint of a smile forming. "That sounds like a very serious way to say you work too much," she says, and for the first time he laughs, a real laugh this time, brief but genuine. "That is probably true," he admits, glancing at her. And there is something lighter in his expression now, like he is stepping out of something heavier. Even if just for a moment, they reach a quieter street, the noise of the city fading slightly, replaced by the soft hum of distant traffic and the occasional passing car. Emily slows her steps without realizing it, as if she does not want the walk to end too quickly. "And you?" he says, turning the focus back to her. "You work here, you draw, what else?" The question is simple, but it feels deeper than it should, like he is asking about more than just facts. Emily hesitates, her instinct again telling her to keep things surface level, to not give too much away, but something about the way he asks makes it harder to hide. I am trying to save enough to get my own place, she says quietly. Somewhere with real light, space to paint, not just sketch between shifts. She adds, almost as an afterthought, but it is the most honest thing she has said out loud in a long time. Daniel listens without interrupting, his attention steady, not judging, not analyzing, just present, and that alone feels rare. You will get there, he says after a moment, and it is not said like encouragement, not like something you say to make someone feel better. It sounds certain, like a statement of fact. Emily lets out a small breath, her lips curving slightly. You sound very sure for someone who just met me, she replies, and he pauses, considering her words. Maybe I am better at seeing things than you think, he says, and there is something in his tone that makes her look at him more closely, something that feels like it holds more meaning than he is saying out loud. They stop at the corner where her street begins, the moment stretching slightly as both of them realize this is where the walk ends. Emily shifts her weight, her fingers brushing lightly against the strap of her bag, not quite ready to step away. This is me, she says softly, and Daniel nods, his gaze steady on her. I figured, he replies, and for a second, neither of them moves, the air between them filled with something unspoken, something that feels like the edge of a decision. Emily inhales slowly, then reaches into her bag, pulling out her sketchbook before she can second-guess herself. She flips it open, hesitates, then turns it toward him, revealing the sketch she tried to hide from herself the night before. His face captured in careful lines, more detailed than she intended, more honest than she planned. Daniel looks at it, really looks at it, his expression shifting in a way she cannot fully read, something softer, something deeper, and when he looks back up at her, there is no curiosity left, only recognition. So I was real, he says quietly, and Emily feels her heart beat just a little faster, because now there is no denying it. Whatever this is, it is no longer just a moment. It is something they have both chosen to see, and that makes it impossible to ignore. Emily does not sleep well that night, not because something is wrong, but because something feels different, like her mind refuses to settle back into the quiet routine it once knew. She lies in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment at the corner, the way he looked at her sketch, not impressed, not surprised, but something else entirely, something that made her feel exposed in a way that was not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar, and that feeling lingers into the next morning, following her through the motions of her day like a quiet shadow. By the time she arrives at the cafe again, there is a subtle shift in her awareness, like she is expecting something without admitting it to herself. She ties her apron, steps behind the counter, and tells herself to focus, but every time the door opens, her eyes flicker up instinctively, searching without meaning to. Minutes pass, then an hour, and she starts to convince herself that yesterday was just a moment that ended where it should have, until her coworker's voice cuts through the noise. Hey Emily, is that guy looking for you? She turns, her breath catching slightly as she follows the direction of the gesture, and there he is again, standing near the entrance, but this time it feels different, not like he is stepping into her world, but like her world is beginning to shift toward his. He is dressed more sharply today, the casual ease replaced by something more refined, more aligned with the image she almost recognized before, and suddenly the pieces in her mind start connecting faster than she can stop them. The name on the card, the articles she half remembered, the presence that never quite fit the simplicity he presented. Her heart begins to beat faster, not from excitement this time, but from realization, from the quiet understanding that she might have missed something important. Daniel walks toward the counter, the same steady confidence in his steps. But there is a subtle difference in the way people react around him now. Glances held a second longer, whispers just barely noticeable. Like his presence carries weight she has not fully acknowledged. Until this moment, you look like you figured something out, he says as he reaches her, his voice calm, but there is a knowing edge to it. Emily swallows, her fingers tightening slightly around the edge of the counter. Daniel Hayes? She says slowly, testing the name out loud like it might sound different now, like it might confirm or deny what she is starting to believe. His expression does not change much, but there is a small pause, just enough to say that it matters. That is my name, he replies simply, and that is when it hits her, not all at once, but in layers, the reality settling into place piece by piece. The man standing in front of her is not just someone who builds companies. He is someone people write about, someone who exists in a world far removed from hers, someone who does not just walk into cafes without reason, and suddenly everything shifts, the memory of the spill, the way he came back, the questions, the attention, it all feels different now, heavier, more intentional. Emily takes a small step back without realizing it, the instinctive reaction creating distance where there was none before. "Why did you not tell me?" she asks, her voice quieter now, not accusing, but uncertain, because the answer matters more than she expected. Daniel watches her carefully, his gaze steady, as if he anticipated this moment. "Because I wanted to know how you would see me without it," he says, and the honesty in his words lands deeper than anything else he could have said. Emily shakes her head slightly, her thoughts racing, trying to reconcile the man she met with the reality standing in front of her. "You mean you wanted to see if I would treat you differently?" she replies, and there is a subtle shift in her tone now, something guarded, something cautious, and Daniel does not deny it. "Yes," he says simply, and the simplicity of the answer makes it harder to argue with, harder to ignore. Emily exhales slowly, her gaze dropping for a second before lifting again, meeting his eyes with a new awareness, because now this is no longer just about a connection that happened by accident. Now it is about a choice he made before she even realized there was one. And she is not sure what to do with that, not sure if it makes everything more real or less. But one thing is certain, nothing about this feels simple anymore, and whatever comes next will not be as easy as it was before. Emily does not respond right away, because there is too much shifting inside her all at once. The simple version of him she had started to understand colliding with the reality standing in front of her now, and for a moment, she just stands there behind the counter, the familiar space suddenly feeling unfamiliar, like it belongs to a version of her that existed before she knew who he really was. "So what now?" she finally asks, her voice steady but quieter, not confrontational, just honest, because that is the only thing she has left to hold on to. Daniel does not answer immediately, his gaze steady on her as if weighing something carefully, not his words, but his intent. "That depends on you," he says, and the answer is simple, but it carries something different now, something that feels like he is no longer controlling the situation, like he is offering it to her instead, and that matters more than she expected. Emily exhales slowly, her fingers loosening their grip on the counter as she steps out from behind it, not fully closing the distance between them, but no longer hiding behind it either. "I do not like being tested," she says, and there is a quiet strength in her voice now, not anger, not resentment, just truth. Daniel nods slightly, accepting it without defense. "I know," he replies, and for a second, there is silence again, but it is different from before, heavier, more real. Emily studies him, really studies him this time, not the version she met by accident, but the man who chose to step into her world without telling her who he was. And she realizes something then, something that shifts the weight of everything she has been feeling. "You did not come back for the coffee," she says, and it is not a question. Daniel's expression softens just slightly, enough to confirm what she already knows. "No," he says, and there is no hesitation in it, no attempt to redirect or explain it away, just honesty. Emily lets out a small breath, her thoughts settling into something clearer, something more grounded, because this is not about his money or his name or the world he comes from. It is about the choice he made to come back, and the choice she has now to decide what that means. She glances briefly toward the door, then back at him, her decision forming quietly but firmly. "I am not interested in being part of someone's experiment," she says, and for a second, something flickers in his eyes. Not surprise, not disappointment, something closer to respect. "You are not," he replies, his voice just as steady. "Not anymore." And that is the difference. Emily feels it, the shift from curiosity to something more intentional, something that does not rely on hidden truths. She nods slowly, taking that in, and then, without overthinking it, she reaches into her apron pocket and pulls out the folded receipt from yesterday, the one she never used. She places it on the counter between them, a small symbolic gesture. "You still owe me for the coffee," she says, and there is the faintest hint of a smile in her voice now, subtle but real. Daniel looks down at the receipt, then back at her, and this time he smiles fully, not guarded, not measured, just genuine, like something inside him has finally settled too. He reaches for his wallet, but pauses for a second before handing her a bill, his eyes meeting hers again. "Then I guess I will have to keep coming back," he says, and Emily feels something shift again, but this time it is lighter, simpler, no longer tangled in uncertainty, because now it is not about who he is or what he represents, it is about what they are choosing in this moment. And as she takes the bill, their fingers brushing briefly once more, she realizes that the accident was never really about the coffee at all. It was about being seen, truly seen, and deciding whether that is something worth risking everything else for, and for the first time she thinks it might be.